Under every street in London is a different city. There are no windows. The sun never rises. There is always water flowing, even when there is a drought above. In 1880, people went there every day. Not heroes, not criminals, just workers. They went where the air is heavy, where the smell is unforgettable, where the darkness has its depth. This is the story of those the city has never seen, but without whom it would drown in its own filth. About people whom almost no one has seen, but without whom the city could not exist. Today, we will slowly descend with them, quietly, without fear, step by step, into the smell of the underworld. Take a slow breath, and another. Let the noise of the day remain somewhere far away, beyond the walls of this room. Here, now, there is only silence, and an old story waiting to be remembered. A city that doesn't know that others live beneath it. London, 1880. Morning begins not with light, but with noise, with the rumble of wheels on the cobblestones, with the distant thud of factory machinery, with the shouts of merchants cutting through the cold air with their voices. Fog still hangs over the roofs. It slowly creeps between the pipes, settles on the eaves, touches the windows. The gas lamps go out one by one, leaving behind a faint smell of soot. The city wakes up. Fires are lit in the apartments. Water boils in kettles. Bread is already crunching in the ovens somewhere. Children put on their shoes. Men adjust their hats. Women close the doors, and almost none of them think about what is happening under their feet. Because under every street there is a different London. Slow, damp, dark. It has no sky. It has no morning. It has no evening. There is always 1 hour there, the hour between silence and water. The cobblestones of London are like a thick lid. It hides what is not customary to see. Under it are old brick tunnels, round as the neck of a bottle, uneven, with spots of moisture, with cracks that stretch along the masonry like wrinkles on an old face. The water flows there, slowly, without haste, with a dull sound like distant breathing. The smell here is not sharp. It does not hit the nose. It enters gradually, through the lungs, through the throat, through memory. The smell of old water, the smell of rotting wood, the smell of a city that has long since ceased to be fresh. At this very hour, when London is stretching after sleep, several men are gathered at a small stone entrance between the houses. The passage is narrow. Next to it is a wall. Above them is only a small opening with a heavy lid. They do not speak loudly. It is not customary to joke here. Someone checks the lantern. Someone adjusts their gloves. Someone looks silently at the stone, as if trying not to think about the depth. Their boots are no longer afraid of water. Their jackets have long since lost their color. Their faces are calm, not because it is easy for them, but because they are used to it. One of them slowly touches the lid. The metal is cold. He does not remember the hands. When the lid opens, air rises from below. It is heavier than what is above. It is slower, warmer, and it always smells the same. It is as if the city itself is sighing. The first man descends cautiously. The light of his lantern fluctuates. The shadows slide along the walls as if they were alive. The second follows. Then the third. With each step deeper, the noise of the city fades. The wheels become an echo. The voices are the rustle of water. And finally, they disappear altogether. Only water remains, and footsteps. Here, under London, time is different. It does not hurry. It does not rush. It simply flows with the water. People here do not look at the sky. They look at the stone, at the reflections on the walls. In the dim light of the lantern, their movements are slow, precise, economical. Here, unnecessary movement takes strength, and strength is needed for a long time. These people are not shadows. They are real. They have homes, names, a past, and a future. But every day they leave all that up there and go down to a place where there are no promises, only work, only water, only smell. The first hours underground. After the first few dozen steps, the darkness becomes thicker. It no longer seems like just the absence of light. It seems to have weight, as if pressing against the shoulders. The lantern does not disperse it completely. It only cuts a narrow corridor out of it, a strip of brick, a strip of water, a strip of shadows. The water underfoot is not deep, but it is cold. It is constantly moving, and this movement is very slow, so slow that it seems as if the water is standing still. But it is worth stopping, and it begins to stretch forward again, touching the boots, flowing around them, wiping the heat from them. The first minutes are always the same. The body still remembers that the air above is different, drier, lighter. Here the inhalation and exhalation are felt separately, as if every breath has a shape. They breathe slowly, deeply, unhurriedly. There is no need to hurry here. The tunnel sometimes widens. The brick walls retreat a few steps. The light of the lantern touches their edges, and the shadows instantly grow, become longer, as if someone huge is standing nearby. And then the tunnel narrows again. It becomes like a throat, a narrow stone pipe in which a human voice would be lost immediately. In such places they walk sideways, slowly. They check the walls by touch. They look for even areas among the mucus and moisture. Their hands are constantly wet. Even in gloves, drops creep into the seams. Fingers lose sensitivity over time, but no one stops to warm up. There is no time for that here. The first finds appear after a few minutes of walking. Old rags stuck in the stones, wooden fragments, sometimes something very small, a button, a piece of rope, a pinch of straw. All this was brought by the water. This underground world does not invent anything of its own. It only preserves what the city above has thrown away. There are no new things here, only what has fallen, washed away, lost, and remains here for a long time. One of the men stops, raises the lantern lower. The light slides across the water. There is a dark spot there, thicker than the rest of the stream. It is silt. It settles slowly, year after year, layer after layer. It becomes heavy as clay, hard as cold bread. It must be removed. No hurry, no sudden movements. The man bends down, dips his hands, slowly separates a piece from the bottom. The feeling under his fingers is thick, warm, sticky. The mud offers no resistance, but he does not want to let go. Each piece weighs more than it seems, as if the water has taken its lightness from it. The first hours of work pass without words. Here they do not speak unnecessarily. The voice reflects off the stone. It returns to others, to strangers. Silence is safer. From time to time, you can only hear the rustle of water, the dull thud of a stone, the creak of a lantern handle, breathing, and one more sound, the quietest. This is the sound of drops. They fall from above, somewhere very high, and each drop seems to count time. The body gradually gets used to it. The shoulders find their rhythm. The hands work without haste. The back slowly tires but does not complain. No one here counts the minutes. Here they do not think about how much is left. Here they think only about what needs to be done right now. One piece of mud, then another, then more. A step, light, water, darkness. The smell is no longer noticed during this time. It does not disappear. It simply becomes part of the breath, like an old smell in a basement, which you only smell when you first enter. Then it doesn't. Memory gets used to it and stops reminding you. Sometimes the water rises a little higher. Today it's calm, but there are days when it reaches your knees, and sometimes it's higher. Then the movement becomes more difficult. Every step brings a penumbra of water with it. Your shoes become like stone, and you have to walk more slowly. Today is an easier day. When someone stops, the others don't look back immediately. Everyone here knows, if someone is standing, it means they saw something. No one is in a hurry. Haste won't help here. One of the men carefully tilts the lantern. The light falls on the wall. And there's a crack there. It's new. It's even lighter than the rest of the stone. It means movement. It means tension in the wall. It means that one day we will have to work more carefully here. He remembers this place, without words, only in his head. Narrow path up. The tunnels change imperceptibly. There is no sharp boundary between space and narrowness. It's just that at some point, the air becomes heavier. The ceiling drops lower. The walls come closer to the shoulders. Here you can no longer walk freely. Here you have to bow your head. Here every movement becomes more careful. The lanterns now illuminate only a few steps ahead. The light touches the brick and immediately disappears behind the curve of the walls. The darkness here does not stand still. It constantly waits for the next step. The men slow down. They know. You can't hurry in tight places. The corridor rises slightly. The slope is almost imperceptible, but your feet feel it immediately. The water flows differently here. It doesn't just flow around your shoes. It stretches back, as if trying to hold on. Each step up is harder than the previous one, not because of fatigue, because of resistance. As if the city itself does not want to let go of those who have gone so deep. The walls here are older. The bricks are darker. The seams between the stones are deeper. In some places, traces of old repairs are visible. Inserts of different colors, uneven areas, stones laid in a hurry many years ago. Sometimes thin threads of moisture hang from the walls. The drops gather for a long time. Then they fall. 1, 2, 3. The sound repeats itself so evenly, as if someone had wound a clock here long ago and forgotten to stop it. The passage becomes narrower. Now it is no longer possible to walk side by side. The men move one after the other. The light of the first lantern stretches a long strip along the wall. The shadow of everyone walking behind is superimposed on the shadow of the one in front. The distance between people is getting shorter. Here there is no place for solitude. Here everyone walks together. and at one point the water disappears from under their feet. The soles of their feet step on the stone. At first it is cold, then it is drier, and only somewhere in the recesses a thin, damp film still remains. The air here is different. It seems stagnant, as if nothing has moved for a long time. It smells of stone. It smells of iron. It smells of old age. Ahead is a vertical passage. This is not a staircase, not a ladder, not a convenient descent. This is a narrow brick shaft going up, exactly wide so that a person can walk through it. One by one, one by one. The first man raises his lantern. The light disappears in the darkness. It is impossible to see where this move ends. He places his foot on the first ledge, then on the second. These ledges were not made on purpose. They were simply wiped over time by the hands and feet of hundreds of people. The stone remembers them all. The climb is always slow. You can't pull yourself up here abruptly. You can't rush, because it's slippery, because the humidity makes the stone treacherous, because the body is already a little tired. Your fingers look for support. Your knees rest against the wall. Your breathing becomes deeper. The light of the lantern trembles with the movement of your hand. From below, all you can hear is the breathing of those waiting their turn. No one is pushing you. Everyone knows. Here, speed has no value. Only balance matters here. When the first man disappears higher, the second puts his foot on the ledge. Then the third. The rhythm of the climb resembles a slow pulse. Movement, pause. Movement, pause. Even the heart beats the same way. Here, in the narrow passage, a different feeling appears. Not fear, but pressure. As if the stone is not just nearby, as if it touches your shoulders, your back, your temples. The ceiling is low. It seems to whisper to itself about weight, about centuries, that it is here for a long time. Someone slows down in the middle of the climb. Breathing becomes heavier. Hands squeeze the stone a little tighter for a moment. They are not in a hurry from below. They are simply waiting from below. They are always waiting here. As the last one rises, it becomes completely dark down below for a brief moment. The lanterns are all up. There is no more light. The silence thickens. And then the light returns again, a faint reflection from the walls above. Up there, another level of the underworld. The same brick walls, the same darkness. But the air is a little drier, and the footsteps sound different. There is less water here, more dust, more echoes. Climbing always changes the way your body feels. Your legs tremble more easily. Your knees remember your weight. Your hands still retain the shape of stone. But you have to keep moving. Because this journey up is only part of a larger journey. On the roof of the Victorian world. Here, higher up, the tunnels change their sound. Footsteps no longer sink in the water. They echo in the stone. Quiet, muffled, as if the very air itself has become harder. Lanterns illuminate the drier walls. The brick here is lighter. There is less slime on it, more dust. And yet it is still a dungeon. The light comes here only for a moment, and it does not linger. The air moves weakly here. It seems as if someone, somewhere far away, is slowly pulling it through long passages, and it slides along the walls, barely audible. Breathing becomes a little easier, but not so much that you forget where you are. Somewhere ahead, another sound appears. Not water, not footsteps, not drops. It is a dull, distant hum. It is impossible to make it out immediately. It comes like a tremor, like the heavy breathing of a great being sleeping above their heads. It is the noise of the city. The men stop for a brief moment, not because they need to, but because this sound always attracts attention. It reminds them that there is life above them. Wheels, loud streets, shops, windows, children, light. It is all there, somewhere very close, and at the same time, unreachably far. Ahead, you can see a metal grate. It is built into the brick, old, with thick bars, bent over by time. A weak light seeps through it. Not direct, blurred, as if someone had passed by above with a lantern or an open window with a candle. The light shows no form. It only reminds us that the world exists. As we get closer, we see movement. Shadows pass by the grate. Legs, dresses, wheels. None of these shadows know who is standing below them now. None of them hears the breath rising from below. Above them is an ordinary path. To those who are there, it means nothing. And here, below, this path is the ceiling of the whole world. One of the men raises a lantern to the grate. The light touches the bars. The metal reflects the glare coldly. For a moment, it seems as if the eyes of the city are looking down. But this is only an illusion. The city is not looking. The city is walking. The city is living. A special feeling appears here. Not joy, not sadness, but something in between. As if you are standing very close to the shore, but you cannot step on land. As if you know that the world is near, but you are still here. Someone quietly wipes their forehead. The sweat is cold. It immediately mixes with the dust and disappears. There are no mirrors here. Nobody sees their faces. Faces here are of no importance. Behind the bars, footsteps are heard again. Faster, lighter, careless. Someone laughs, quietly, for a moment. This sound seems alien, as if from another time. Men do not linger here for long. This place is a reminder, and reminders should not last too long. They turn away. They walk on. The light of the lanterns again flees from the surface into the depths. The tunnel narrows again. It becomes wetter again, darker again. The world above slowly melts behind them, and the dungeon takes them back. Now the movements become a little more difficult, not physically, but inside. That brief touch of the city always leaves a shadow behind it. The road between the houses. Here, underground, there are also roads of their own. They are not paved, have no names, and will never appear on maps. But it is through them that everything moves, that the city can no longer hold within itself. The tunnels converge, diverge. They change direction imperceptibly, sometimes at an angle, sometimes almost smoothly, so that you feel the change only in how the water changes its movement. You can no longer hear the city here. The grates are far behind. The sounds above have dissolved into the thickness of the stone. Now, You can only hear the underground path. A slight downward slope appears under your feet. The water flows faster here. It does not stand still. It slides. With a quiet, constant rustle, your shoes now and then stumble over bumps. On the pebbles, on hard lumps of silt that haven't yet settled. It's harder to walk here. You have to keep your balance. The walls are changing too. The brick here is more damaged. Some areas seem to have been gnawed by time. The stone is crumbling. Dark sand lies in deep seams. Traces of old landslides are visible here. Frozen flows, uneven patches, laid in different years. The canal has been repaired here more than once, and not for the last time. One of the men carefully touches the wall. The stone is warmer than you expect, warmer than the air, as if the wall retains the warmth of 1,000 steps, 1,000 days, 1,000 bodies that have passed here before. He slowly withdraws his hand. The moisture remains on his palm. The water sometimes behaves strangely here. In one place, it flows straight. In another, it twists in small eddies, as if someone is spinning it from below. These eddies are not dangerous, but they remind us that there is an even deeper bottom beneath this road, and even darker layers. The passage between the houses is a place where streams meet. Here, waters from different parts of the city converge. From the rich districts, from the poor, from the factory districts, from the residential districts. Here everything becomes the same. Here there is no difference, where the kitchen was and where the workshop was. Here everything is simple, water and shadow. The smell changes here. It becomes thicker, heavier, as if the air absorbs several memories at once. Sometimes it seems as if it has several layers. First stone, then water, and somewhere deeper, something else. That which has no form. Men instinctively slow down in these places. Here you always have to look 2 steps ahead, because the stone can suddenly change shape, because the bottom can become softer, because the wall can hide a cavity. There is always a chance of a little surprise. One of them raises the lantern higher. The light falls on the ceiling, and there is a thin, dark line visible, a crack. It runs along the brick, as if someone had once run a knife through the stone. It is old, but alive. Moisture slowly seeps through it. A drop does not fall. It takes a long time to gather. It takes a long time. And only then does he let himself down. The men stop for a short while. No one speaks. There is no need to speak here. The crack does not mean immediate danger, but it does mean memory. Memory of the movements of the earth, of pressure. That stone also ages. It simply needs to be remembered. The road between the houses always seems longer than it is, not because of fatigue, but because of the sameness. There are no sharp changes here, no climbs, no bars, no light from above. There is only forward movement, a step, water, breath. Sometimes it seems that the tunnel does not change at all, that people are walking and the space stands still. But this is the illusion of the dungeon. Here, movement is not distance. It is time. One of the men slowly straightens his back. His shoulders are a little stiff. His muscles remember the weight. No one complains. There are no complaints here. There is only the bodily knowledge here. You can still go. You don't have to stop yet. And the road continues, between stone and stone, between water and shadow, between 2 parts of the city that never meet. Here, deep under the streets, between the foundations of the buildings, an invisible border runs. Above it is life, shining in the windows. Below it is work that no one sees. And these two parts never look at each other. Silent danger inside the chimneys. At a certain point, the road begins to change, not from the outside, but from the inside. The stone remains stone. The water remains water. The tunnel remains a tunnel. But the air becomes different. It no longer moves. It hangs, as if the dungeon itself has taken a deep, slow breath and is in no hurry to exhale. The lanterns burn evenly. The flames do not tremble. This is always a sign of stagnation. The water is darker here. It is not transparent even near the light. It swallows the reflections and returns them only in weak shadows. The steps become quieter, not because the men want it to, but because the space itself muffles the sound. Even the rustle of boots seems to be absorbed into the bottom. Here you can hardly hear the drops. The ceiling is drier. The stone above doesn't cry. It's not joy, it's alarming. Men stop more often, not because of fatigue, because of feeling. You can't rely only on your eyes here. What's more important here is what you can't see. One of them slowly dips his stick into the water. The movement is careful. No sudden jerks. The stick goes in easily. Too easily. This means that the bottom is soft. Too soft. The mud is deeper here. Some take a step back. Others stay where they were standing. In such places, two people always work. One goes in, the other waits. It's not heroism that matters here, but habit. The first one takes a step. The water slowly rises up the boot, then higher, to the calf. The movement becomes heavy, as if the earth is holding your feet. The second one waits, holds the lantern lower. The light lies just on the water, as if illuminating the boundary between the solid and that no longer has a form. Here the mud can pull. Not sharply, not like a trap, but slowly, like a dream. The longer you stand, the harder it is to take the next step. The first man takes another step, then another. His movements are slow, balanced, as if he is walking not with his feet, but with his own breath. A step is an inhale. A pause is an exhale. In such places, the silence is special. It is not empty. It is as if filled with something heavy, as if the very air lies on your shoulders. Somewhere to the side, a faint sound is heard. Not a drop, not a step. A quiet splash, almost inaudible. No one looks back sharply. No sudden movements are made here. The light of the lantern slowly rotates. It slides across the water, over the walls, over dark recesses, and stops, where the water trembles a little. It is not a threat. It is simply the movement of the current, a change in pressure, an invisible shift in the water. But the body notices it anyway. Here, danger does not scream. It whispers. The first man reaches a firmer area. His step becomes more confident. The second follows. Then the third. One by one. Slowly. Without taking his eyes off the surface of the water. Now the mud is behind us, but the feeling of its presence remains. It's as if there's always another layer beneath the ground, one you can sink into, not with your body, but with your mind. The air smells different here. Not sharper, but deeper. The smell doesn't touch your nose, it touches your memory, as if something very old, long forgotten, but still alive, sits in these walls. The men walk on, without talking, without stopping. They know, the longer you stay in such places, the harder it is to leave them. Sometimes in such areas, direction disappears. The walls become the same. The turns are similar. The shadows repeat themselves. Here, it's easy to lose track of which direction you're moving. That's why they always leave marks here. Barely noticeable. Scratches, broken stones, barely touched places with chalk. No one outside will notice this. But for those who work here, this is the language of the road. Slowly, the tunnel begins to change. The water becomes lighter again. The bottom becomes harder. The silt recedes. The air begins to move, barely. But the movement is felt. The silent danger remains behind, not disappearing, but simply letting go, as always. And only now does the body allow itself a barely noticeable breath a little deeper. Not out of relief, but out of habit. Wounds that never have time to heal. The body does not start talking right away. At first it is silent. Then it whispers. And only later does it remind itself of itself, with a hard, heavy feeling that cannot be ignored. Here, underground, the pain does not come suddenly. It accumulates, layer after layer, like silt at the bottom. The shoulders become heavier over time, not from the weight of the tools, from constant tension, from the way the body keeps itself collected, ready for a slippery wall, for a sudden descent, for an unstable bottom. The hands work more slowly. The fingers are no longer so obedient. They seem a little wooden. The cold and damp have done their job, but they keep moving, because there is no other choice here. Scratches appear on the skin. At first, they are imperceptible, just thin lines that burn for a few seconds. Then they become deeper, the ones that don't disappear overnight. The brick is not sharp, but it is constant. It touches the skin again and again, and sooner or later it finds a weak spot. One of the men stops to pull up his glove for a moment. There is a dark line on his wrist, where the stone has caught a little harder. He doesn't look long. Here they don't examine wounds. Here they simply remember them, and they move on. Every movement in the tunnel is a small friction. After a few hours, it turns into something permanent. My knees don't hurt, but dull. My back seems to have lost its elasticity. It doesn't break, it just becomes heavy. At such moments, a slow fatigue sets in. Not the kind that makes you fall, and not the kind that presses on your eyes, but the kind that lives in your muscles, in the very center of your body, as if someone is slowly pouring a thick, warm liquid there, and it doesn't flow back. No one here counts how many scratches have appeared in a day. There are too many of them. They merge into a single feeling of constant friction between life and stone. The air here is warmer than in the previous tunnels, not because it's close to the surface, but because the bodies have been working here for a long time. The breaths are heavy, deep, slow. Sometimes you can hear someone holding their breath a little longer than usual, as if he wants to look inside himself for a moment. The water now reaches the middle of his shin. It is not cold, it is simply there. The boots have not been dry for a long time. His feet are used to this feeling. The moisture no longer seems like an enemy. It has become a background. Someone stumbles. He does not fall. He only takes a step to the side, barely noticeable. The others immediately slow down. The light from the lanterns gathers in one place for a moment. No one asks what happened. Everyone here already knows. Sometimes the body simply gives a sign. The hand holding the lantern sometimes trembles, not from fear, from tension. The light fluctuates slightly. The shadows move slowly along the walls, and it seems as if the dungeon also breathes with them. In such places, people rarely think about wounds. Here they don't ask when something will heal. Here they only ask whether they will have the strength to take another step. Small pains merge into one big one. It has no shape. It has no place. It is simply everywhere. In the hands, in the legs, in the shoulders, in the back. And the body gradually learns not to pay attention to it. Not because the pain disappears, but because it becomes the background of life. Sometimes someone stops to lean against the wall, not to rest, but simply to feel its hardness. The stone is cold, but reliable. It will not betray abruptly. It always warns quietly at first. The movement continues, slowly, without haste. Here they don't go fast because of the pain. Here they go with him. And each new scratch, each new pain is not perceived as anything special. It is just another sign that the day continues. Trap inside the wall. The tunnel changes suddenly. A few steps ago, you could walk straight here, albeit slowly. And now the walls converge almost close together. Hands touch both sides at the same time. Shoulders barely pass. Movement becomes more cautious than ever. Here, you no longer walk. Here, you squeeze. The air in this place is different. It is not heavy. It is dense. As if it could be cut with a slow knife. As if it does not want to move with the body. Each breath sounds deeper. Each exhale is longer. The lantern no longer shines forward. It shines to the sides, into the stone, into the brick, into the cracks that stretch along the walls like old scars. The light finds no space. It seems to be stuck right where the body is. The movement slows down even more. Now each step is a small decision. First the foot, then the weight, then the other foot. You can't slip. You can't lean too hard. You can't lose your balance. Here, falling doesn't mean hitting. Here, falling means not being able to get up. The first man stops, not because he can't go, but because the space ahead is getting even narrower. He raises his lantern. The light slides forward and gets lost. There's no darkness there. There's no space there. You can't turn around here. Here, you can only move or stand. Back, only by backing up. Slowly. Very slowly. Someone walking behind barely takes a deeper breath. It is not the sound of fear. It is the sound of preparation. The body itself understands that the space is getting smaller. The first one takes another step. The brick touches the chest. The stone presses against the back. The shoulders rest on both sides. Here, the body seems to transform from moving into form. The lantern is clamped between the hand and the wall. The flame burns evenly, but the light has become even weaker. In such places, thoughts become quiet. They do not disappear. They simply do not move far anymore. Here, they do not think about home, about tomorrow, about the streets. Here, they think only about the present, about the next breath, about the next movement. The silence here is special. It is not deep, it is close. It seems to touch the skin along with the stone. Sometimes it seems that the tunnel will not let through, not because of anger, but because of indifference, as if it is simply not designed for people to pass through here. The first man suddenly stops completely. His body tenses. He seems to be listening with all his being. The light of the lantern trembles. Nothing happens for a few seconds. Then he slowly makes another movement, and the space ahead slightly expands. This is not liberation. This is just a small piece of relief. The second one follows. It is harder for him. He is taller. His shoulders are broader. The stone touches him harder. He breathes slowly, evenly. No one is urging him on. Here, haste can be a mistake. The third one enters last, and for a few seconds there is no movement between the walls. Only light, only breathing, only stone. Then the space slowly lets go. The tunnel becomes a little wider again. There is an opportunity to straighten your back, to take a more even step. The lantern shines forward again, and not just to the sides. The trap is left behind. It did nothing. It only reminded. Here, underground, the walls don't always fall. More often, they just silently squeeze. And that's sometimes enough. When people start moving more freely again, no one speaks. Relief is never celebrated here. It is simply accepted as another part of the journey. And the road continues again, slowly, quietly, without sudden movements. And the tight stone will be felt for a long time, on the shoulders, on the chest, in the memory. A short hour of silence. After a narrow passage, the space suddenly changes. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but as if the stone simply recedes a little. The tunnel widens. The ceiling rises higher. The walls no longer touch the shoulders. The body feels it before it thinks. The back slowly straightens. The neck rises. The arms are no longer pressed to the sides. It is not freedom, but it is relief. The water is calmer here. It does not pull. It does not swirl. It does not hide traps under itself. It simply stands, dark, deep, like an old mirror in which nothing is reflected. The men stop, not all at once. First the first, then the second, then the last. The movement ceases without a command. The body simply understands. Here you can stand. The lanterns are lowered. The light is no longer looking for a path. It simply lies on the water and the stones. The flame burns evenly, without trembling, without haste. There is no air movement here. Therefore, there are no vibrations. This silence is different from the one in the narrow passage. There it was oppressive. Here it is spreading. It does not press on the chest. It seems to cover from above, like a heavy, warm blanket. Someone slowly sits down on the stone, carefully, so as not to slip. The stone is damp, cold, but it holds the weight. Others remain standing, or lean against the walls. No one speaks. At such moments, people do not think about fatigue. It is there, but it doesn't need to be mentioned. It simply lives in the body. All you can hear is slow breathing, the faint drip of water somewhere far off to the side, the rare, even crackling of the wick in the lantern. These sounds are so quiet that each one seems separate. In the darkness here, it's easy to lose track of time. There are no moving shadows. There is no changing light. You can't tell whether a minute has passed or 10. There is only a state here. One of the men slowly reaches out and takes off his glove. His fingers are white with moisture. His skin is wrinkled, as if his hands had been in water for a long time. He looks at them for a few seconds, without a single thought. Then he puts the glove back on. They don't treat wounds here. Here they are simply given a few minutes without movement. Sometimes, at such stops, images come into their heads. Not memories, not dreams, just fragments. The light in the window, the sound of footsteps on a dry street, the rumble of wheels, the smell of bread. These images appear slowly and disappear just as slowly. Here they are not held back. The lanterns shine evenly. The flame does not diminish. It does not increase. At this moment, it seems that both day and night have stopped somewhere far away with him. Someone slowly gets up, without haste, without sudden movement. This is a sign that does not require words. One by one, people return to walking. The back bends forward a little again. The shoulders tense again. The step becomes cautious. Silence slowly leaves behind. It does not disappear. It simply lets go. And again. Step, water, stone, breath. A short hour of silence has passed, not as a rest, but as a gentle transition between two waves of fatigue. The old chimney and the silence that takes your breath away. Here the air becomes different without any warning. A step ago it was heavy, filled with watery moisture, and now it is drier, colder, as if this space had long been cut off from the rest of the underground movement. The tunnel changes almost imperceptibly. The brick becomes darker. The seams between the stones are deeper. On the walls, areas appear where the masonry is completely different, rougher, older, laid by hands that have long ceased to exist. Here you can no longer hear water, only silence. The lanterns shine differently. The light does not reflect off the damp surface. It is lost in the dust, in dry cracks, in layers of settled soot. The air here smells not of water, but of old age, the smell of emptiness, the smell of what is no longer used, the smell of time that simply stands still. This place was once part of another system, an old chimney node, abandoned long ago, covered from above, forgotten by new city plans. Nothing flows here anymore. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. Only dust slowly settles. The men stop at different times. First the first, then the second, then all of them. Not because they have to, but because the space itself forces them to stop. Here, you don't want to go faster. Here, you want to move slowly, as if each step could break something very fragile. In the light of the lantern, you can see an arch, narrow, sooty, with traces of an ancient fire. Soot used to rise here. Once there was hot air here. Once there was someone else's life burning here. In stoves, in fireplaces, in kitchens. And now there is only cold. Light slides up the wall. It touches the brick that has faded with time. It touches black spots. It touches fragments of old pipes. And stops. There is nothing more up there. The passage is dead. The silence here is not like the silence in a narrow passage. And it is not like the silence underwater. It is the silence of a space which no one needs anymore. It does not press. It does not frighten. It simply is. It is so deep that it seems as if it has its own weight. Someone steps carefully forward. A boot touches a layer of dust. A faint cloud rises. It hangs slowly in the light of the lantern. The dust falls so quietly that it is not heard. It is easy to imagine that the city above has disappeared. No wheels, no voices, no light. As if only these walls, this dust, this silence remain. One of the men raises his hand and touches an old, sooty brick. It is dry. Now it is always dry. Once it was hot. Once there was fire in it. And now it is only a memory. This place is not dangerous, but it creates a different feeling, a feeling of absence. Nothing waits here. Nothing will happen here. Nothing will change here. And that is what makes the silence so heavy. Men do not stay long. They do not work in such places. Here they just pass, slowly, unhurriedly, as if they are passing something foreign. One of them stares into the darkness of the arch for a few seconds longer than the others. Not out of curiosity, and not out of fear, but out of respect. Then they all move on. Silence is left behind. It does not chase. It does not pursue. It simply remains where it is supposed to be, in the old, closed space that remembers warmth but no longer has it. And the sound of water reappears, thin, distant, barely audible, as a reminder that the dungeon is still alive. The footsteps turn. The breathing becomes deeper again. The lanterns move more evenly. Life slowly takes its rightful place again. The silence that holds your breath is left behind, and the path continues. Under the evening sky, the longest shadow of the day. The air begins to change again, at first almost imperceptibly, not abruptly, not immediately. It becomes colder, drier, and, as it were, a little lighter. This always means only one thing. The time is changing above. Here, underground, there is no sky, no horizon, no evening light, but the body still feels the approach of dusk, like it feels the change of weather, like it feels the turn of the year, as if something far, far away is slowly extinguishing the daylight. The tunnel rises barely perceptibly. The slope is almost invisible, but the step becomes different. The muscles work a little differently. The breathing changes rhythm. Here it is no longer water that leads the way. Here it is air that leads. In several places, narrow cracks appear in the ceiling. Not open, studded with stone, but not quite tightly. Cold slowly seeps through them. It's not the wind. It's not a stream. It's just the presence of evening. The light from the lanterns seems warmer, not because it has changed, but because everything around has become colder. The walls give off a coolness. The stone no longer retains the warmth of the day. It seems to remember the night. Somewhere far above, the wheels are clanking for the last time. The sound comes here not as noise, but as a dull, drawn-out breath, as if the city is slowly settling. The men feel it, not in words, not in thoughts, but in their bodies. Fatigue changes form. It is no longer sharp. It becomes even, calm. It's as if the body accepts the fact that the day is not over for it yet. The shadows here, underground, are not lengthened by the sun. They are lengthened by the lantern. The darker it gets above, the heavier their light seems. The shadows stretch along the walls, slowly, like breathing. One of the men pauses for a moment and raises the lantern a little higher. The light touches the ceiling, and for a second, it seems that there is a sky up there. But it is only stone. Somewhere in a narrow side passage, you can hear the soft movement of water. Not fast, not strong, just a reminder that the underworld does not count days. It lives continuously. Now the smell changes again, not abruptly, not clearly. It gets colder, as if, along with the evening, another memory comes to the city. The memory of the night, the memory of peace, the memory of fatigue. Someone shifts from foot to foot a little more slowly. Their knees are heavy. Their feet are not so obedient. But the movement does not stop. Here, they do not stop because of fatigue. Here, they stop only when there is nowhere else to go. The light of a lantern slides along the wall, and in its circle, small details are visible. Cracks, grains of sand, fragments of old repairs. All this was here during the day, and it is here in the evening. Night does not change anything underground. It only makes the silence thicker. Somewhere far above, the lights are turned on in the houses. Here, below, they do not know about it, but they feel it anyway. How it feels when the day seems to be over. The shadows from the lanterns grow longer, not because of the light, because of eye fatigue. The darkness seems to be rising closer. It doesn't attack, it just approaches. This is the longest shadow of the day, not from the trees, not from the houses, but from the life above, which is already turning into night, while here, underground, the work journey is still going on. The men walk on, slowly, evenly, without haste. The evening goes its own way. They go their own way. And these paths never cross again. The road that always leads to darkness. The night above has already fallen completely. Here, underground, they don't know for sure. No one looks at the sky. No one sees the stars. No one hears the city changing its voice. But the body still feels it. Now the darkness above and below has become the same. The air no longer changes. It is stable, cold, almost motionless, as if the whole world has now frozen in a single state. The light from the lanterns seems weaker, Not because of the flame, because of the eyes. They are tired of distinguishing shadows. They are tired of looking for outlines. The darkness ceases to seem deep. It becomes just a background. Now the tunnel stretches for a long time. No sharp turns, no changes in height, no surprises. Just a road. Step by step, the same rhythm. And here a feeling appears, which is difficult to describe in words, as if the path no longer has a direction. Not forward, not backward, just movement. Someone stops counting steps, not consciously. The number simply no longer arises in the head. The space becomes the same. The stone is the same. The water is the same. The lantern is the same small point of light in the endless darkness. At such moments, people rarely think in words. Thoughts become like breathing. They appear and immediately disappear, without meaning, without images. Sometimes someone catches themselves looking not at the path, but at the shadow of their own hand. It moves with the body, repeats every gesture, as if another being walks alongside. The pain is no longer felt separately. It is no longer in the hands, not in the legs, not in the shoulders. It simply exists as part of the movement, like a stone, like water, like air. The body works without command. The foot knows where to step. The hand knows how to hold the lantern. The back knows how to hold on. Consciousness retreats. Some people think of home at such moments, not of a specific place, not of people, but of feelings, of a dry floor, of silence without water, of warmth that does not move. These thoughts do not hurt. They pass calmly. The tunnel narrows a little, not abruptly, gradually. No one comments on this. No one looks back. Here, everyone is used to the fact that the world is slowly shrinking. The lanterns now shine closer to the floor, not because they need to, but because their eyes are tired of looking into the distance. The light holds where there is a stone, where there is support. The darkness no longer seems hostile. It seems familiar, as if you were born into it, as if you have always been in it, as if no other state existed. And here comes the feeling of a path that leads nowhere, not because it is bad, but because it feels endless. One tunnel gives way to another. One turn leads to the next, and there is no end. The steps become even slower, not from fatigue, but from acceptance. Here they no longer fight the road. Here they go with it. And somewhere deep inside, a different kind of silence is born. Not the silence of space, but the silence of thought. It is deeper, it is darker, and it is calmer. Here, in this long darkness, a person no longer waits for light. He waits for change, and he does not know what it will be. The night that knows their names. The night above has long since come. Here, underground, it is no different from the day. The darkness does not change color. It simply remains darkness. But the body still knows. Time has changed. The air is even colder. It no longer retains the warmth of the day. It does not carry the smells of the streets. It does not remember the sun. It smells only of stone, water, and old fatigue. The tunnel changes little by little, not abruptly, not noticeably. The ceiling becomes a little higher. The walls are a little smoother. The step is a little more confident. No one speaks, but everyone feels. The path leads in a different direction. A familiar sound appears. Not water, not stone, metal. A dull, cold echo somewhere far ahead. The lanterns rise a little higher. And there, in the light, a shape gradually emerges. A ladder. It is old, iron, eaten away by rust, but it holds. Here, one thing is always important. Not how it looks, but whether it can still support the weight. The first man approaches slowly, not because he is afraid, but because his body is now heavy. He places his foot on the first rung, then on the second. The metal is cold. It does not give off heat. It does not accept hands. The climb always feels different. The body, which has been moving forward for a long time, now rises upwards. The breathing changes. The muscles work differently. The lantern in his hand shines closer to his face. The light touches the eyes, and it seems brighter. One by one they climb, slowly, without haste. No one looks down. Here it is not customary to look back where you come from. At the top, a round hole is visible. It seems small, like a coin of light. The light is not bright, not sharp. It is simply there. When the first one reaches the top, his silhouette disappears from the field of view of the others, and in its place appears the sky. Not completely, just a piece. Dark, without stars in this narrow circle. But it is the sky. The others climb after him. Each disappears from below and appears from above. Between these two worlds are only a few rungs of an old ladder. And here is the last one. He lingers a moment longer, not to say goodbye, and not to look back, but simply because the body does just that. Then a step, and the darkness of the dungeon closes softly below. Above is night. The city breathes slowly. The streets are quiet. Not all the windows are lit. The gas lamps stand like motionless sentries. The air is dry, cold, lighter. I want to breathe it in slowly. My body still feels the water in my shoes for a long time, the dampness in my clothes, the heaviness in my hands. But now it is a different feeling. Now it is a feeling of completion. No one speaks loudly. After the dungeon, voices always seem superfluous. Words are not needed here. They disperse quietly, each in his own direction, along the narrow night streets, under the shadows of the houses. The city does not meet them. The city simply lets them pass. Sometimes one of them will come here again tomorrow, and will walk the same path, the same tunnels, the same water, the same shadows. But this night will remember them all, not as heroes, not as shadows, but simply as those who once again returned from the darkness. Perhaps the city will never know their names. Perhaps the streets will not remember their steps. But the night always knows who came out of the ground. And that is enough. Now, my friend, you can slowly close your eyes. Somewhere, under the stone, the water continues to flow. And above it, London sleeps. Thank you for going through this story with me. If you felt at ease, Leave your quiet presence in the comments. And subscribe to the channel so that we can meet again somewhere between light and darkness.